What if I told you there is a 4-bedroom house in Texas for $89,900 and a full-size fixer in Arkansas for just $23,000? Right now, in 2026, American housing prices are sky high, mortgage rates are brutal, and even fixer-uppers can feel out of reach. But hidden across the country, we're counting down 10 dirt-cheap homes in America. Number 10. 102 Paradise Street, Wichita Falls, Texas. We're starting with a house that already looks bigger and more flexible than most people would expect at this price. And the photos make that clear right away. From the outside, it looks like a broad one-story ranch with a long, low roofline, fenced sides, a simple driveway approach, and a front yard wide enough to keep the place from feeling crowded. Inside, the living space feels like a blank slate in the best possible way, with tile floors, plain neutral walls, and enough openness that you can imagine setting it up as a family room. The kitchen also helps the story, because it isn't some tiny galley squeezed into a corner. It has real cabinet space, a proper range, tile backsplash, and enough room to function as an everyday working kitchen instead of just a token one. This isn't a remote bargain that strands you in the middle of nowhere. It's a real city house for somebody who wants schools, stores, jobs, and normal city life around them. But at an entry point that still feels wildly low for nearly 1,900 square feet. This could work as a first family home, a live-in renovation project, or a straight value buy for someone who wants room first and polish second. At $89,900, it opens the list with scale, flexibility, and a look that feels more usable than the number suggests. If you want more hidden real estate finds like this, subscribe to the channel, because there are still plenty more wild listings hiding across America. Number 9. 1718 Newhall Court, St. Louis, Missouri. Now we drop into a completely different kind of value story, because this one is less about size and more about buying into a real metro without getting crushed by the price. This is a modest single-story house tucked on a cul-de-sac with a clean stone and siding exterior, a shallow front stoop, mature trees around the lot, and just enough front yard to give it some breathing room. Step inside, and the place feels straightforward. Not fancy, but honest. The hardwood floors in the main living area give it a warmer, older house feel. While the kitchen keeps things simple with wood cabinets, a full range, and enough room for someone to make it functional without pretending it is luxury. The bathroom is basic too, but again, the story here is not glamour, it's control. It's got the full basement, the spacious backyard, and the covered patio, and that matters, because those are the kinds of features that turn a cheap metro house into something more livable. Suddenly, you aren't just buying a roof and 4 walls. You're buying backyard grilling space, basement storage, maybe a workshop area, maybe future finishing potential if the numbers make sense. St. Louis is one of those cities where value can still show up, but only if you are willing to understand the block-by-block reality. This one feels like it could work for a first-time buyer, a landlord, or somebody who wants an affordable city base and does not need a giant house to make that worthwhile. At under 80 grand in a city people actually know, it feels like a very real entry point into ownership. Number 8. 198 High Street, Caribou, Maine. This looks like the kind of house that has actually lived a life. From the exterior, you're looking at a long sloped driveway, a broad lawn, a detached garage set back behind the house, and a deep wrap-style front porch that instantly gives the place more character than the price should allow. The green metal roof stands out, and the whole home feels like one of those northern houses that was built to be practical first, but ended up charming because of it. It's got a deep front porch, tin ceilings, a historic stair handrail, and a 19-foot great room off the kitchen that could flex between dining, living, office, or even a first-floor bedroom setup if someone wanted to rethink the layout. It feels adaptable. The newer garage from 2015 and the deep yard also help it feel more usable as a real home, not just a nostalgic one. Caribou gives the property its own kind of appeal too. This is northern Maine, So the lifestyle here is slower, calmer, and much less about trends than about stability and space. You could picture a buyer using that porch in summer, keeping the garage as storage for tools or snow gear, and using the long first-floor room as the workhorse part of the house. At $74,900, this one feels less like a bargain bin pick and more like an old townhouse with options. Number 7. 539 Hill Street, Hamburg, Illinois. This house is small, yes, but you can see why somebody would pick this one. The aerial views show a little house tucked into a green pocket right beside the Mississippi, with trees, open sky, and that stretch of water doing most of the emotional heavy lifting. It does not look like a place you buy for status. It looks like a place you buy because you want to wake up, make coffee, step onto a porch, and see the river moving in the distance. The listing specifically calls out the covered front porch, the river views year-round, and the fact that it sits above the floodplain. Inside, it's still a practical little home. The kitchen, large utility or mudroom, and main-level bedroom setup make it feel easy to use, easy to maintain, and very easy to imagine as a starter home, a weekend retreat, or a low-pressure place to downshift. And Hamburg itself is the kind of river town that works because it is not overbuilt or oversold. You're close enough to local recreation that the house feels like a lifestyle property, without becoming some expensive getaway fantasy. This is the sort of listing where the front porch matters, the side yard matters, and the setting does a lot of work that square footage cannot. At almost $70,000, they aren't buying size. You're buying a river atmosphere at a price point that still feels strangely old. Number 6. 4890455 Avenue, Mallard, Iowa. Now let's get into something quieter and more stripped back, but not in a bad way. The photos make this place feel like the edge of town, Iowa, in the most literal sense, with a gravel drive, open space all around it, mature trees throwing long shadows, and a simple ranch-style shape. The house sits on a large lot at the edge of town, and that really is the whole pitch. It isn't dramatic. It's peaceful. There's a one-car garage, a carport, and enough yard that the place does not feel boxed in, which matters a lot when the interior is only a little over 700 square feet. From the side and rear photos, you can see how much empty breathing room you are really getting, and that helps the small house feel much more usable. Zillow also notes central air, forced air heating, and a full unfinished basement, which means this is not just small, it is practical. You're getting the pieces that make a modest house work. Mallard is tiny, and that's part of the attraction. This feels like a home for someone who is intentionally simplifying, maybe retiring, maybe downsizing, maybe just tired of spending money on space they do not actually use. It's easy to imagine someone parking under the carport, keeping the garage for tools or storage, and treating the big yard as the real luxury. At almost $65,000, this one feels calm, useful, and low stress, which is exactly what a lot of cheap home buyers are actually looking for. Number 5. 3162 Barger Springs Road, Forest Hill, West Virginia. Have you thought about leaving society and just living in the woods? Well, then this is the perfect house for you. This is where the countdown stops pretending it is all about house specs and starts leaning fully into escape. You can see a weathered little camp-style structure tucked into trees, with a covered entry, a screened porch feel, and the kind of rural roughness that immediately tells you this place is about setting more than polish. The listing says it is within walking distance of the Greenbrier River, and that gives the whole property its identity right there. This isn't a suburban starter home. It's more like a river camp, a vacation hideout, a quiet weekend base, or a place for somebody who wants to unplug without disappearing entirely. You've got almost an acre of land, a seasonal stream at the back of the property, an outdoor fireplace, a picnic table, and electricity already in place. That's enough to make it feel like a usable getaway, not just a fantasy of one. The catch is real too, and the listing is honest about it. The home isn't insulated, the heating is just a wood-burning fireplace, and the condition of the well and septic is unknown. But that honesty actually helps the story. because it tells you exactly what kind of buyer this is for. Somebody who wants a polished full-time home should keep scrolling. Somebody who sees a screened porch, tree cover, river access, and outdoor fire pit potential for under 60 grand might stop right here. Forest Hill is the kind of place where your main activities aren't shopping and errands. They are river days, camp chairs, and quiet. That's the whole mood of the property, and the photos back that up. Number 4, 1215 Street, Jamestown, New York. Now we come back towards something more neighborhood-based and more everyday. The exterior photos show a simple two-story house with a small covered porch, privacy shrubs in front, and the kind of narrow city lot setup that feels familiar in older small northeastern towns. It doesn't look flashy, but it does look lived in, which matters. Zillow's description leans into that same feeling, calling out plenty of natural light, inviting living spaces, ample cabinet and counter space in the kitchen, and nicely sized bedrooms. It also mentions a fenced backyard for privacy and fun, plus proximity to local schools, parks, shopping, and dining. That helps this one feel less like a project and more like a normal life property. Jamestown is the kind of place where a house like this can work for a buyer who wants a first real home. Maybe a rental later, maybe a place to settle without draining every dollar they make. The formal living and dining rooms also make the layout feel more traditional, which some buyers still love because it gives the house a little more structure and separation. You can picture a sofa and TV in the front room, a family table in the dining room, kids upstairs, and the fenced yard doing its job in the back. At almost $50,000, it isn't glamorous, but it's very easy to imagine using. And honestly, that's what makes it strong. It feels like a real neighborhood house at a price that still makes people do a double take. Number 3, 848 Arlington Avenue, Newcastle, Pennsylvania. By this point, the list is deep into bargain territory. So what matters is not perfection. It's whether the house still feels like somewhere you could actually live. This one does. The exterior gives you a classic two-story small town house with a compact covered porch, a simple white facade, and a fenced backyard that immediately adds real day-to-day value. It's got the first floor laundry, ample cabinetry, a beautifully designed kitchen, and that cozy layout people always say they want when they really mean manageable. Newcastle is one of those western Pennsylvania towns where the value story is brutally direct. You aren't paying for buzz. You're paying for shelter, yard space, and a detached home that still has some dignity to it. That is what makes this one work. It is not huge, but at 1,140 square feet, it is also not tiny. It feels like the kind of place for a first-time buyer with cash, a practical investor, or somebody who just wants a front porch to sit on and a fenced backyard where a dog or a kid can actually run around. The short sale status also explains why the number is where it is and tells you this is one of those deals that needs a little patience and realism. But from the photos and description, the house doesn't feel hopeless. It feels usable. And under $46,000, usable is a very powerful word. Number 2, 430 East Main Street, Wellington, Illinois. This one feels almost unreal, but not because it's cute or turnkey. It feels unreal because it looks like a full old brick landmark dropped into the wrong price bracket. The photos show a tall, dramatic brick house, sitting out on a wide open lawn with major presence, boarded windows, and the kind of shape that immediately tells you this was once something serious. The current owners have already poured money into structural work, roof replacement, new plywood, 50-year shingles, gutters, exterior restoration, tuck pointing, a brand new copper water line, and removal of the old knob and tube wiring. So this isn't just some abandoned shell. It's a restoration story paused midway through, and that is exactly what makes it so interesting. At more than 2,700 square feet on just over an acre, with 4 bedrooms, 2 baths, and a bonus room upstairs, you're not just buying space. You're buying possibility. The catch is obvious, and the photos don't hide it. This is a house for somebody with imagination, money for finishing work, and a genuine appetite for old home restoration. But you can absolutely see the vision. The giant lawn, the brick architecture, the scale of the building, it all feels like the skeleton of something special. Wellington itself is tiny, which is why a house like this can sit under 40 grand at all. And that's what makes it one of the wildest listings in the countdown. It isn't easy, it isn't polished, but it is unforgettable. Number 1, by 1700 West 25th Avenue, Pine Bluff, Arkansas. And here we are, the cheapest house on the list, and the images make the situation very clear the second you see them. From the outside, this is a plain one-story house on a level lot in an established neighborhood, with a simple front walk, modest yard space, and a footprint that still feels like a real home, not a tiny cottage or collapsed shack. That's important, because once the price drops this low, most buyers assume the property will stop feeling real. This one still does. Zillow's listing makes it even clearer what the play is. This is for investors, flippers, or renovators. The home needs a full remodel, has no appliances, no heating, no cooling, and is basically a clean slate with wood floors, a great room, and an eat-in kitchen layout waiting for somebody to make decisions. And the images show exactly that kind of opportunity. Rough edges, plain bones, and upside if the numbers work. Pine Bluff is one of those markets where properties can get shockingly cheap because the broader market pressure is not the same as it is in bigger, stronger cities. That does not make the deal effortless. It makes the entry point possible. You can picture someone turning this into a rental, a flip, or a very low basis home if they are willing to do the work. At $23,000, that is really the whole point. This is not the prettiest house on the list. It is the most extreme value entry, and the fact that it still brings more than 1,300 square feet is exactly why it ends the countdown with a real double take. And that's the thing these lists always reveal: cheap doesn't mean bad. Sometimes cheap means city access. Sometimes it means a real porch and a deep yard. Sometimes it means river views, a quiet camp setup, a fenced backyard, or a giant old brick house waiting for the right person to bring it back. The deals are still out there if you're willing to look where everybody else isn't looking. Let me know which one you would actually consider.